I'm waiting for an email for a delivery. I'm just trying to see if it's coming.
What haven't delivered?
So phones, customer, they sent a delivery of some phones for a customer and they haven't shown up because DPD drivers are currently on like 280 stops in the morning and 280 in the afternoon.
I think DPD are the worst.
It's like toothache, earache and a kick in the nuts. Like which pick your poison in it.
Oh, between the company.
So Royal Mail, DPD and one's toothache, one's kick in the nuts and one's earache. None of them are particularly useful.
I think every the best, my experience.
I just hate the logo. Can't have that coming into my office. Like, have you seen it?
Yeah, I'm just surprised at that. But I don't know why they changed it from Hermes. Better.
Yeah, and then just use different typefaces on it or fonts or whatever it's called. It looks like a baby did it.
Sorry, can I move on? Or do you want to... Anything else to talk about that?
You're good to go.
Okay. I'm springing this on you. I'm in your world now, my friend.
Okay.
Chris Voss, never split the difference.
Yeah, man.
Negotiating as if your life depended on it. Actually, you tell me, please.
What would you like to know?
What you like about it?
So Chris Voss is, after a stint policing the rough streets of Kansas City, Missouri, he joined the FBI where his career as a kidnapping negotiator brought him face to face with bank robbers, gang leaders and terrorists. Yeah, in terms of the book, for me, it's like many books there's 6 to 10 really good things in there. But if you just put them on a piece of paper, then it's a pamphlet and no one's going to make you a best-selling pamphlet writer. So there's lots of stuff that fluffs around it.
Can we talk about that quickly?
Yeah.
Here's what I think about books. Because I agree with the point you just made, and I think that's true of most books. The book we discussed in the last episode, The Motive, Patrick Lencioni, he makes one point, but the value of books and the why it's very different from, I mean, we could all do that. We could all just, instead of reading Never Split the Difference, you could type into ChatGPT, can you give me the top 3 points from the book? But it's the structure of how it enables you to soak up messages, because the point, or no, let's say there are 10 points in a book, as you say, they're made in 8 different ways within a chapter.
Yeah.
And you digest it. It might be the case that you've got, I don't know, let's say the point is, let's think of a point that will be about listening, let's say.
About what?
Listening.
About what?
You've done that to me twice now, and I keep going for it. The point, there's a chapter about listening. And if you just said, listen, it's important, versus you have 8 different vignettes of different contexts, different natures about this is the application, these are the virtues of listening, then you take it away. One of the reasons why, and I actually talk about this with my clients when we're, particularly with CEOs who usually, particularly when companies grow, they have a bit of a responsibility to be able to instill things in the organization. So we look at like what makes a good keynote speech, for example. What's really, when you watch a TED talk and you remember it for the next 20 years, like why? And one of those parts of that is this vignette structure. So you have a point that you want to make. Let's say you're doing a 20-minute talk. You have one point that you want to make and you're really clear and this is the point. And then you have, let's say, 4 or 5 different vignettes, stories, parables, statistics, whatever it might be that constitutes that vignettes. And there are, one's about kind of like in a family context, one's about work, one's about psychology, philosophy, and you make the same point in different ways. What will happen in your audiences, or like me reading a book, is maybe vignette 1 and 2 don't really resonate with me, but number 3, I get it.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's just as a general point about books, because I always, when I do sometimes do some talks at universities, and that's one of the things that I really try and, I actually did a 40-minute talk once to university students of this is why you should read. And I think it's something worth stressing, because I understand that you could type into Chat GPT, give me 3 points of this book, but you don't soak it in unless it's in something like this. You can I'm sure you can watch like, you know, long form podcasts and they do nearly the same thing. However, with a book, with a well-written book, it's a lot of work. That person has put a lot of work into constructing their sentences and stress testing their thinking, and you're getting the diamond at the end of a lot of hard work into it. So I'd really encourage book reading. I think it was Charlie Munger says he's never met wise leaders who aren't avidly reading constantly, and I think that's largely true. Not always true, largely true. Anyway, back to Never Split the Difference. So let me ask you about this. Ackerman bargaining method. Ring a bell?
Yep.
Determine your reservation price. Consider all factors influencing price. Step 1. Determine your reservation price, or the price that you actually want to pay for something. Step 2. Anchor at 65% of your reservation price. So this is how much you want to pay for something. Work out 65% of that. That's your first offer. Step 2. Step 3, when and if they decline that offer 85% of your reservation price. You will likely get a thoughtful response at this stage. Step 3. Step 4, follow their counter with 95% of your reservation price, decline or accept. Step 5, then end at 100%. What do you think to that?
So when I read this, one of the things I was thinking a lot about was before money, before lots of commerce and trades, human beings worked on a barter system. So before cash was actually a thing, which meant that I had some fish and you had some loaves, and I give you a couple of fish, you have a couple of loaves. And that's essentially what happens with human beings. It's an inbuilt thing that we can't help, that we want to do that barter thing. And it's more prominent in other cultures. You know, you go abroad and, you know, some people are offended that you haven't bartered on the price. There's a beautiful scene in Monty Python's Life of Brian when he tries to buy the pot and he's disgusted and he won't accept the full price for the pot. He's like, just give me the pot. And he's like, no, that's not how it works. You've got to barter. So because what happens with the anchor thing is you feel like you've got something, and you've got the win, and you've got somewhere. The classic mistake that people often make with negotiation is they negotiate down from something when you're trying to talk about getting a better price for something.
Hang on, say that again. They negotiate down from something.
So for me, in a sales scenario, you'll say this is the price, and the person who's purchasing will want to go down. So that's the classic problem, is that you're going backwards. So the person who's selling is always feeling like they're losing out. This goes the other way. So the whole point of the thing is that you're starting low, and if you meet on the price anyway, and that's the price, and that's cool. But if you go up, that person who's selling, who's giving you the product or service, feels like they've got more than you are willing to pay, and that's kind of the thinking behind it. I find it fascinating. I love having the conversations with people. I love going abroad and having them barter things. I'm the worst sucker in the world for buying a load of stuff that I don't need because it looks like it was a bit cheaper. Frankie goes mad when I take yellow sticker stuff home from the supermarket. And I'm like, I've got all this stuff. It's like, it runs out today. We've got one meal left for the day. What are you going to do with it? I don't care. It was only 17 pence. And it's like, whatever. But yeah, it's one of the things, what do I think about it? Yeah, it's a really good way of thinking about it. Most people think negotiation is someone tells you the price and I'll try and chip it. And then they lose out as a seller in that instance. You know, is that your best price? Oh, I can do it cheaper. Oh, I know. You know, it's often a question that people ask, which doesn't necessarily mean I don't believe it is. It just means I don't understand the value yet, or I've not got my head around it.
Because I think about this Ackerman bargaining method, and there's like good studies on it that it's, I suppose this is more from a buying perspective or negotiation perspective than it is a selling, but it's good to be aware of it as well. But surely it's context dependent. Like if a house is on the market for, is it? A house is on the market for 100K, just to keep it simple, and anchor at 65% of the reservation price. So let's say you actually want to pay 90K for it. So you're putting in your initial offer of whatever that is, 55K.
Yeah, but that's a supply and demand thing, isn't it? Because there's only one of them house. If there's lots of them, if you go to a guy who's selling fish, he's got loads of fish. He's got to sell them. going to be able to get some of them at a knockoff price because you'll know what your dad being market trader style guy and stuff like that is, kind of just want to get rid of your stock. The stock's actually worth nothing. Yeah, I agree with you though. If there's one house, you're not getting it at 60. If there's loads of interest in it, you're going over. These kind of things aren't stuff that works everywhere. It's a tool to have in your toolbox when the opportunity or the ability to be able to do so arises. You can't walk into Tesco's and go, well, I've just seen a bag of spuds there for £6, but I'm thinking maybe I'll give you £3.90.
Well, you can.
Yeah, but the security will be over pretty soon and escorting you off the premises.
That is strange, isn't it? Of in modern day, because as you say, back in the fish for a loaf day, that negotiation would have been everywhere, and it still is in lots of different cultures. But there are just some. Let's talk retail. There are just some shops you go in. I can negotiate in here, and there are some as you say, Tesco's that I can't. It's strange, that isn't there? I suppose it probably feels that. Is it the case that when you're in a shop and you can feel that there's a decision maker owner in there, then I can probably negotiate? I don't know.
Where does it come from? Where is it? Yeah, I guess it's certain industries, isn't it? You go into a place that sells couches, well, if you go into a place that sells couches and not having a sale, then you're probably in the wrong building.
I have heard there is a sale on at DFS.
No way.
Yeah.
Only until Boxing Day, though.
Yeah. And then they got the Boxing Day sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird that. I wonder what that is. I wonder, because there are just some places you go into and you go, the thing to do in here is to negotiate, but you wouldn't dream of doing that in...
But most of them places will have preempted your negotiation by whacking the price up anyway. Car lots have got 30% price increase on
cars. Yeah, good example. Yeah,
they've got an increase on what it is. I guess if you haven't got the power of a really big brand behind you, and maybe not multi-site, then you're more likely to. An more independent trader might be more likely to have a conversation around price.
Is there anything in there for whether it's selling or buying that there's some value of not being the decision maker? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're representing a company, and even if it's not true, but you position it as, I've got to ask to try and negotiate, like it's my job, I've got to do my due diligence, or someone's making a bid with you, and you go, I don't have that kind of, I don't have that level of clearance to be able to sign off on this. Is that a tactic that you come across, or?
Oh, it's a tactic that's been poorly used in the past. Listen, what price would you pay for this? Let me phone my boss, I'll see if I can get it cleared. Because I used to get calls from a lot of sales reps all the time. I'm just with this guy, and I knew I didn't need to say anything. Right, so would you do £35? And he's looking at the guy, and the guy's, I've got this. And I would say nothing. So I guess it's just another negotiating tactic, isn't it?
I think
I feel uncomfortable with tactics though, and the use of them.
You feel uncomfortable with tactics?
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying about tool for your toolkit or tactics. Because when we start talking about tactics, then it feels like something we're doing to gain something that we shouldn't do. It should be that win-win negotiation.
So what do you constitute a tactic? So let's take this first point of note I've got here.
If it's used in a gimmicky or, I don't know, like it's just something you feel in your stomach, isn't it?
So do you differentiate, let's say, strategy from tactics?
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, okay. So because my first note that I have on my book for this book here is at the start of negotiations, talk about what the person wants. Don't think just be blankly obsessed about finding out. That's not a tactic. Is it a tactic? I don't know.
Well, it depends, because human beings have an inbuilt BS sensor. So if you are asking lots of questions and not caring about the answers, not listening intently to what someone's saying, eventually they'll go, this is awkward. Why is he asking me all these questions? So again, I ain't dissing Chris Voss, by the way. If you're listening, Chris, I'm 100% not. However, all stuff's context-based, isn't it? Like if someone came into your shop and he was coming to buy a couch, you're going to ask him a load of questions about himself, would you? Well, tell me about your missus. What colour's your... them kind of questions. What colour's your room? Yeah, you're going to ask them, but where are you going holiday? Like, what's that got to do with this couch?
Interesting. There's another point here that I wanted to run past you, see what you think. Research shows that the passage of time when negotiating is essential. If you rush it, people feel as though they haven't been listened to, and trust suffers. Thoughts?
Thoughts, yeah. If they haven't been listened to, it's a classic thing of, there'll be a series of good questions that you can ask someone in a negotiation or in a meeting. If you ask them and you don't actively listen to what the responses are, so they say something and you just ask your next question, which has got no context to that thing, then they don't feel like there's a trust there. It's people say, oh, you need to go in and build rapport. Like it makes me feel a bit sick in my stomach, that kind of stuff. You need to get trust. So people need to
People don't know what rapport means, do they? I mean, There's some so major misconception. This whole thing of how's your day going? And you're like, what? Like you don't, that always absolutely boggles my brain that there are big companies who have clearly, this is their policy of you customer service representative, you have to ask, how's your day going? Because that's rapport building. You think, how has this passed? Like, how has this passed all the levels of...
What I always say is, like, don't ever ask a question you don't want to know the answer to. How was your day? Imagine asking me that last Wednesday. I told you what happened to me on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Flat tire, split me pants. You don't want to know the answers to that question.
Wow. Yeah.
You genuinely don't. And to be fair, Wednesday, 2 people asked me and I told them. And they were just sitting there going, and I was like, well, you asked me. So, like, don't ask it. If it's someone how's your day going? I might ask you that, and I've seen you. I want to know, how's your day going? I want to start a conversation. Someone I don't know, and I go, hi, how's your day going? It's like, weirdo. And they run a mile.
There's an important, I actually want to stop this in the world. So I think it's an important point, because everybody's going to watch this. There's an important point to make there of, please, this happens with bigger businesses, call centers, shops, restaurants, the how's your day going thing, policy that you implement, please stop. That's not what rapport is. You can build rapport, and you're much better off building rapport just by doing the thing, whether you're serving them in a restaurant or a coffee. When you're serving and you're doing it in a way, it's a lot of it's to do with warmth and charisma and efficiency. That's rapport. Or in a sales environment, you're building a relationship with the person through helping them. You don't it's not this separate subject of rapport building time now. Let's ask them about how their weekend was. Makes no sense, does it? I'm not wrong there, am I?
No, you're not. It's like, do you want to know the answer? Like, don't ask a question you don't want to know the answer to. And if you do it because someone said, here's the 3 questions you should ask someone when you first speak to them, or they call up or you meet them, and you're not going, right, okay, how's your day? It's going really badly. Oh, brilliant. So and what's your favorite color? Like, there's nothing in it. You build trust by actually giving a shit about somebody. So if I say, how's your day going, mate? Then I want to know the answer, because I'm trying to have a conversation with you. If I say, how's your day going? Brilliant. So anyway, about this thing I wanted to talk to you about, it's gone. And it's why I'm saying, you can't build rapport. It doesn't exist. It's not something you can do. You can build trust in the relationship between the 2 people.
Well, that's a nuanced thing there, isn't it? Because I'm thinking back to like the old days of the Rolodex, and you've got your client, and they've got 2 kids, a daughter called Sophie, and there's just a seismic difference of when you're meeting up with that person and you go, how's Sophie? Because you're ticking it off because there's something you think. How's
Sophie getting on with the bike you bought her?
Yeah.
That's the difference.
That's the difference, isn't it? That's the difference.
How's Sophie? Great. Anyway, what are we doing here? What's going on?
Yeah.
How did your missus get on with that job application? Oh, do you know what? She didn't get it. That's building trust in our relationship. How is your wife? How is your daughter? Would you like to buy these things? Not in there, is it? It's the opposite of what you want to happen in that conversation. It does all the other stuff. It gives you the ick. It makes you feel awkward. It makes you not want to consider having a conversation with them. It puts you off buying, selling, or doing anything with someone.
That's true. When I get asked those questions, my first thought is, I want to not be here anymore.
Yeah.
I want to leave this conversation immediately.
Often,
you're like, yeah.
Like, I often ask people when they ask me, how are you? I say, brilliant, how are you? And they're like, what? Like in Mackey's or in a coffee shop. And I go, how are you? And they go, I'm all right, brilliant. What's all right about it? And they're like, this is a weird conversation, because I kind of want someone to realise that if you don't want to know the answer to them questions, then it's a bit...
Who's asking how you are in McDonald's? What McDonald's are you going to?
The one in Knightsbridge.
One in Knightsbridge.
I don't know. That was the poshest place I could think of off the top
It's
of my
very
head.
posh, very posh. I don't know if it means I don't think that. I can imagine there isn't a McDonald's in Knightsbridge.
There isn't. If
there
you're
must
listening,
be.
Ronald,
Yeah.
opportunity there.
Do you know my favourite quote from Ray Kroc?
Do I know your favourite quote from Ray Kroc? Have we done his book? Have we had a conversation about it? What's your favourite quote from Ray Kroc?
Thanks for asking. When you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're rotting.
Okay, I do like that.
Mm,
Cool story, bro.
it's a good one. But no, let's think about it. When you're
Okay.
green, you're growing. When you fixed mindset, growth mindset. When you feel like Jeff Bezos,
Yeah.
his words, when you feel like it's still day one, as he has written in every company memo since 1997, at the end, it's still day one, then you're always growing. You're never ripe. But as soon as boxing analogy, when you're in that mode where you're trying to achieve something, you're training hard and you're just desperate to try and improve and get there, you see this thing happen where when they get to that finite goal they had of winning the world title, i.e. you're now ripe, then you're on the decline. So it's a very important mindset to have that, always being green. That was a bit of a detraction there, wasn't it? Anything else on...
That's your infinite goal stuff, isn't it?
Say again.
That's your
I think
infinite goal.
yes.
So, like, if you do I want to be the world champion, but if you change that and you said, I want to be every one of the greatest boxers until I can't beat them anymore, then you're always going to keep training. You're always going to keep. You're never going to get ripe, are you? You're always going to remain green.
It's what's known as the oversaturation effect in sports psychology. So when you have what I would call a finite goal, and you can of course make the argument that within the realm of being an athlete in sport, it's all finite because you can't do it at the highest level forever. But if you have a very specific thing, I'm a boxer, I want to win the WBC heavyweight title, then you're at risk of, when you achieve that thing that started off as being led very by intrinsic motivation of it's just something you want for yourself. And then you get there and you get this extrinsic reward. So you get money, you get the thing that you were aiming for, to the title, you get the fame, you get the adulation. There's a thing called oversaturation effect where you just become overwhelmed by the rewards that you get and you lose that intrinsic motivation you have. So yeah, that would be a good example. And you see this in, let's stick with the boxing thing. You see this very often of the difference between the people who turn out to be legends, multi-weight world champions, Klitschko 10 years or whatever it was as world champion, it's because they had something higher than just want to win a world title. And you see there are some people that fall off or they get the money and they become financially secure and then they lose that spirit that they've got. You can of course equate this to other sport. You can equate this to business as well. But sports people who aim for something more, that, as you say, you phrased it well, I want to be a legend of the sport and every day I want to be constantly improving myself, the best version of myself, then you'd say you're more likely to be able to have more longevity, achieve bigger things, win multiple world titles or whatever it is. But it translates to business as well and leaders. If you have I want to get to £100 million business, then it's increasing the likelihood that when you get to that £100 million businesses, £100 million business, you're not going to go on to be £1 billion business because you've achieved it, or unless you really replace it with something else at that point. But yeah, always you want something that by its nature is infinite, because when you're talking about businesses, it is an infinite game. It's an infinite game. It's up to you how you play it. You can either play it with an infinite mindset or a finite mindset. And if you want to play it with an infinite mindset, you have to have something that you're aiming towards, a North Star, as is popularly used, that by its nature is infinite, i.e. something you're eternally aiming towards but ultimately can never achieve. That's the it's still day one mindset. That's the entropy. Sand castles will always turn into piles of sand if left to the mercy of the elements. So you're constantly building your sand castle. You're always building. You've never built it. As soon as you've built it and you take your hands off that thing, countdown to returning to a pile of sand.
Yeah. What about never split the difference for you then?
It's obviously something a bit different for me. I tell you what I try and do is I think I'm half giving myself a compliment here. I have good depth of knowledge, very good depth of knowledge in a few things. How organizations work, I suppose, like organizational psychology, how groups operate, these kind of things. But because it's such a sprawling subject and it covers everything, as hopefully we now both agree, within an organization, I have to have, in some ways, knowledge that's a mile wide, but sometimes an inch deep. And it's one of those things that, I deal with head of sales and sales executives. So I always try and expand my horizons and understand something better than I already do. And I mean, even, there's some things in here that there are principles that I think about, like at the start of negotiations, talk about what the person wants. That's good advice for me, particularly in the early days of my consultancy, and I'm sat down with a potential client. I believe in that. That's what I should be doing. But there's always a temptation when you feel like you're trying to sell something, or you want to get a deal, or you want to build a relationship, that you have to communicate the thing. You're sort of doing a bit of a sales pitch. But there's stuff like that. That's good advice for me.
It's good advice for anyone. Like, it's the most common thing that people do. Like, if you've got your own business, if you're an employee for the business, if you really believe in the product or service, people aren't actively listening. So as soon as they hear an opportunity to say, oh, we can fix that, they jump on it like a tramp on a bag of chips and tell them that they can fix it. When the best thing to do is really be standoffish on it and keep doing discovery, to ask questions, to really like almost get them to go, no, are you going to give me this thing? Because one of the other things he does in the book is talks about asking questions so that you get an answer which is a negative instead of a positive.
I was just about to read this bit. When a counterpart, I'm just going to read it so you can continue. When a counterpart says no in a negotiation, it gives them protection for a while. It removes the pressure as the dynamic of that conversation has been established. That's when negotiation starts. Your counterpart saying no makes them feel as though they're in control.
Yeah. See what I did there? I said, yeah, when you handed over to me, it was clever. It's that question of, it's like, it's the pushback stuff. I'm trying to think of an example that I could use right now. Feedback on talk. I speak to lots of people who do public speaking, Harvey, and a lot of them tell me that they never have a problem with cracking jokes at the end of this. A lot of them tell me they've got a problem cracking jokes at the end of their talks, but I guess that's not a problem for you. Mm-hmm. No, it is a problem for me. Ah, right. Okay. So they're
interesting.
They're steering themselves into the conversation then.
Okay, hang on.
Okay.
Is this not a tactic?
Is it not a tactic? No, it's not.
Why?
Because it's a strategy.
Okay. On a serious note, what's the distinction there in that context?
Well, I think the distinction is how they're sold. So if people who are saying use this tactic, it feels like this is a way to get what you want. It's not. This is a strategy to have good conversations so that you can work out. Because when you do that pushback, they go, no, I don't have that problem. Like, brilliant. Nice one. This is not for you. This thing that we're talking about is clearly not a good fit, because this is what we help people with. So listen, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck. See you later. Whereas the other way to do it is get them to say yes, is so that you can go, well, brilliant. Let me tell you all about how we fix that.
Yeah. Because I think that's good advice there, of this distinction between tactics and strategies. And what you just said there is, I completely understand. So that's a strategy to enable the quality of that discussion to improve.
Yeah.
Which then leads to good things. But yeah, it's not understood. Yeah, that's interesting. Is that something you talk about through Sales Dojo and university stuff? Do you talk about this, distinction between tactics, strategy, and don't employ tactics?
Do a talk about it? No, I probably just sit there getting miffed at my screen when I see people talking about it, but I don't generally talk about it. No, I mean, I'll have a conversation with someone if they say, I've learnt this thing and it's a good way of getting someone to do that. Like, but why do you want them to get them to do that? You actually want them to want to do that. It's a different mindset.
Interesting.
Because if people buy based on emotion and then they usually ratify a little bit with logic. If you just go full on emotion and they don't do logic, that's when buyer's remorse comes in. So you need some of each of them things for them to go, yeah, I feel it, I've got the pain, but also there's logic behind it because of X, Y, and Z. And that's why having good discovery, having good conversations, you have to reframe what you're doing when you're in a scenario, when you're having a sales meeting in inverted commas, to it being a discovery session. Because instead of me selling you my product, it's us having a chat to see if we're a good fit for each other. And I've said to you before, set that up at the start by saying, look, if this isn't a good fit for you, at any point, tell me that it's not. Brilliant. Let's have a chat about this stuff then. This is cool, isn't it? We're just chatting, two buddies, having a chat. There's trust. Building rapport is, oh, you look really well. Your hair's nice. I want to talk to you about this thing that I've got. It's really cool.
That's good advice.
Thanks.
I've learnt from this.
I do that usually once a year, so.
Very good.
See you next year.